All right. Thank you, Kristen, for being here today. We at Texas Medical Center travel around the world. We talk to folks from all over the country. And in the last 5 years, the conversation has turned from, why would I think about doing anything in Texas, to, I've heard about Texas, tell me what's happening. And truly, the reason for that in oncology is because of CPRIT. So for those that aren't familiar, CPRIT is the Cancer Prevention and Research Institute of Texas. It's responsible for bringing our Nobel laureate, Jim Allison, back to Texas, for funding prevention in every single county in the region, in the state, and for funding world-class academic research across the great state of Texas. Kristen Doyle, what else should the audience know about CPRIT?
So, wow, there's so much to tell you, but we've been operating now for 16 years. We award up to $300 million every year. We'll be making our next awards on Wednesday, $154 million. Yeah, I know, it's exciting. So, we up to 10% of our money can go to prevention, and Emily's right, it allows us to touch every single county in Texas. To date now, I think we have detected 53,000 cancer and cancer precursors through the prevention screenings that we fund. And that's really amazing. These are all underinsured or uninsured Texans. So not only are we extending their lives, but also saving the Texas economy money. 90% of our portfolio is in research. So that's a lot of that is in academic research. And Houston has half of all of our money that we put in research. But from the very beginning, our board made the decision that research happens at early stage companies also. So we have funded 72 companies up to $800 million doing really amazing things.
That's right. And CPRIT, how big is the total pot of money that we're talking about here?
So we have $6 billion total. We can award $300 million each year. At this point now, 16 years in, we made our first awards in January of 2010. So 16 years in, we have awarded $3.9 billion. After next Wednesday, it will officially be $4 billion. Wow. So yeah, we have a couple billion left. I know.
And how many counties in Texas have been touched by those prevention awards?
So I did not know this before I worked for CPRIT. I am not a native Texan, although now I've lived here longer, but there are 254 counties in Texas, and we have projects in every one.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And when was CPRIT founded?
So CPRIT was created by the legislature in 2007, and it was a statewide vote in 2007. We opened our doors in 2009. We had another statewide vote in 2019, so another $3 billion, so that's the $6 billion total. We just had the vote for DPRIT last week, so hopefully you all voted. 68% passage, that's the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas. So I'll say that again, $9 billion that Texas has committed to two of the biggest health issues that are confronting our country.
That's fantastic. So started in 2007. When did you join CPRIT?
So the legislation was passed in 2007. I joined in July of 2009 as the general counsel. We opened our doors in September 1st of 2009, and like I said, made our first awards January of 2010. So, you hear this all the time, but we really were building the airplane as it was rolling down the runway.
So we'll come back to that with DPRIT, because that's an amazing, rapid, actually, expansion of opening to awards. So yeah. Excited to come back to that conversation. So you've been there since 2009. When did you take over as CEO?
I'm sorry, say it again.
When did you become the CEO?
So I became CEO in July of 2024. So I was general counsel and deputy executive officer for most of my time at CPRIT, and have been a lawyer all of my professional life. So it was a really amazing thing for me to be able to be in the middle of all of these brilliant people that were working on cancer. I'm a cancer survivor. I was diagnosed with leukemia just a few weeks after I had made partner at my law firm. So, 32 years old, diagnosis out of the clear blue sky, really impressed upon me all of the things that had been done to prepare me to survive my leukemia and my bone marrow transplant. And so, it was serendipitous, this opportunity with CPRIT came up. And, I say I'm like the Forrest Gump. I get to be in the middle of all of this, even though my last science class was my sophomore year in college. So it has been, the joy of my professional life to be able to witness all of this that's happening.
We appreciate you sharing that story with us, Kristen, and many of us are touched by cancer, and the fact that we as a state have invested in this initiative for research, for prevention, and for product development is super exciting. Many of us in the room have already benefited from the academic research side of CPRIT. It funds researchers, it funds relocation grants, it funds the academic research that's happening here across the state of Texas. It funded our Accelerator for Cancer Therapeutics, which we've gotten to work on together for the last few years. But tell us a little bit more about the other pillar of CPRIT that the startups in the room may be interested in, which is product development.
So like I said, from the very beginning, we had identified that, in order to get this great research that is happening, these brilliant ideas, out of the lab and moving on the pathway to patients, we needed to commit money to, bridging that valley of death, and at this point now, more than 50% of our entire research portfolio is in translational and clinical research. So we're really dedicated to moving this great science, down the pathway. So we fund early stage companies, preclinical, phase 1, phase 2, obviously do a lot with therapeutics, but also devices and diagnostics. And we have a category now that we call new technology. So that's anything that doesn't fit easily into the devices and diagnostics or the therapeutics. And we open up our applications in April. We hold it open for about 10 days. So this year in April, we got 134 applications seeking $1.1 billion in funding. We had to narrow that down. We'll announce next Wednesday, a week from today, 9 companies who will receive funding from us. So that just gives you kind of an idea. If you are thinking about applying to CPRIT, talk with me. We have, I can also put you in touch with our Chief Product Development Officer. We're always willing and excited to talk with you about the work that you're doing and help you kind of figure out, is this the right time to apply? Do you need more data? Where you should be applying. We have a seed fund also.
I mean, I've talked to so many people this week that you and Ken and team have been in Houston, and people who are meeting you for the first time have just been amazed at how accessible you are and how helpful you've been. So absolutely take Kristen and team up on that offer if you're interested. Wow, $1.1 billion requested just for product development this year in 2025. Yeah. That's a very different story than just a few years ago. So tell us about some of the innovation that you're proud of that you and the team have driven in the product development arena. And where were we in 2022 versus where are we today? So in terms of, I'll say in terms of innovation for the outcomes of what our companies have been able to do, we have a drug that's on the market and available to patients, Welireg. We have 6 devices, diagnostics, and then other kind of manufacturing that we have available on the market. Our companies, like I said, we have 72 companies. They have to raise matching funds and an additional investment. That $800 million that we have committed to those 72 companies, they have been able to leverage the CPRIT funding into $7.7 billion in additional funding. So it is really a tremendous work that's being done, and they're moving down the pipeline. In terms of, I don't know if I'd call it innovation, but it was a great change. And we had something in February of 2022 where we only had 8 companies apply for our awards. We did panels on 3 of them and ended up awarding 2 grants. And our chair at the time said to us, have we just funded all of the companies that are working on oncology in Texas? Which of course was not true. And so we really looked at everything about our process. I'll say this, that I haven't said yet.
The legislature gave us a tremendous gift. All of our decisions, whether it's prevention, academic research, or product development, any award that we make, so those 300 million I'm talking about, all of that has to be recommended by a peer review panel. So we don't make the decisions, the peer review panel does. Our oversight committee, our governing board, ultimately is the one that approves those awards, but the universe of what they can look at is what has been recommended by the peer review panels. And all of our peer review panels live and work outside of Texas. So it cuts down on the conflicts of interest, certainly puts a lot of distance between any idea of political influence. And that has been very helpful, I think, also in the integrity of process and then also the reputation of the CPRIT awards. So we changed up our review process. We really worked with the reviewers. It's always interesting. Like I said, we can't vote, we can't discuss. We're not part of the discussion when the peer review panels meet, but of course we observe them. And it's very interesting from a human psychology standpoint, just to see, kind of the groupthink that happens sometimes, and they get very twisted up. If my Chief Product Development Officer, Ken Smith, and I have been speaking on a lot of panels, and Ken always jokes that like the perfect application for our review panels is, an already FDA approved drug. I mean, that's how much data they want. So, we really had to work with them there, but we also worked on our process in terms of, we started a preliminary application process. So you get a quicker answer from us in terms of whether this is something that we're interested in, or maybe, you need to come to us with a little bit more data or a different stage, or maybe you should be looking at the seed award rather than a company award. And that dramatically increased, just over these 3 years, the number of applications that we've received and then the number of awards that we've made. We award about $75 million each year for companies.
Okay, so we heard 1.1 billion requested. Less than 75 million will be awarded. That is an incredible diligence pipeline and process that you all have implemented to create the opportunity for the top of the funnel and attract these applicants in, and then to go through this extended peer review to get these applicants out. And I think the other amazing part is that CPRIT goes first, oftentimes.
Yes.
And so how is the conversation changing in this environment where you're requiring the matching funds, but CPRIT goes first? Are we thinking about how this environment is impacting the ability to get matching funds? What is changing about the process or post-award process to really enable those funds to go further?
So, we do a lot of things. In order to enable our funds to go further, we do a lot of budget negotiation even before we make the awards, just to see if we can eke out a couple more companies. We had 14 companies that were recommended for funding. We'll only be able to fund 9 of them. And there's probably 10 more that we could have funded, are excellent companies, but we're limited in terms of the money. So we start with the budget negotiation process, and then we also are patient. We require matching funds, but we have been able to, we distribute the funds in tranches. So you may receive a $10 million award from us, but you tranche it out over 3 different, we say years, but they're really, many of our 3-year grants are on their 8th year. But 3 buckets of money. And, in order to execute the contract with us, you have to have a match just for that first bucket. So I'm always, going to events like this, going to events with investors, trying to talk about what it means for the CPRIT process so that these companies are able to raise that matching fund because of the promise of the CPRIT grant. So it takes our companies usually, anywhere from 6 to 18 months to be able to raise that match. A lot of times they use the CPRIT money as kind of the anchor in terms of the fundraising.
Absolutely. So I feel like we buried the lead here a little bit, and it took us till now to talk about DPRIT. So we, as voters in Texas, passed the Dementia and Prevention Research Institute of Texas, We're thrilled to have another $3 billion going into having Texas take a leadership role in brain health and dementia and related diseases. So take out your crystal ball, Kristen. What's going to happen with CPRIT? How are the conversations going that you're involved with?
So it's really exciting. They are a separate state agency. A whole lot of people have been asking me, oh, are they going to be under you? There's a separate state agency. I would assume that a lot of our procedure, our process is going to be similar or the same. Our statutes are virtually the same. You search and replace for cancer and put in dementia. So a lot of the administrative part, like I said, I was the lawyer for so many years, the contracting, the rules, what's eligible and not eligible, all of that will be similar. They will have a lot of policy decisions to make. The board that's 3 appointed by the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker, so a 9-member board. And we certainly had that with CPRIT's board. Lots of decisions to make. I mean, some of them even, would we, fund what I call cancer adjacent? Treatment for graft versus host disease, which is not cancer, but is a side effect of a bone marrow transplant. Is that something that we would fund, or are we only going to fund cancer indications? It was a decision to even fund companies. Nothing in our statute says that we must fund companies. And so CPRIT will have to make a lot of those policy decisions. I grew up, I'm a child of the 80s, so, we had books called Choose Your Own Adventure. Like you turn to if you're going to go into the cave, turn to page 56. I always feel like, with CPRIT, it was kind of it's the choose your own adventure too. We had made the decision from the beginning, we're just going to fund the best of the best. We're not going to put quotas in. But it would have been interesting to see, what if we would have said, we're going to put all of our money in, all our chips in on the 3 most lethal cancers in Texas. What would be the impact of that? And so, the CPRIT board and all of the people around CPRIT will have a lot of those decisions to make. Are they going to segregate out some money for Alzheimer's and some money for Parkinson's? Or are they just going to fund, or are they going to, use companies? Certainly I would say, and based on, the history that CPRIT's had and our experience, that of course, early stage companies are part of the research continuum, but that will be a decision for them to make. So it'll be really exciting and interesting to see how that develops.
Absolutely. We're excited to see what comes next. Thank you, Kristen, for sharing with us in this conversation today. It's great to be a part of leading oncology in Texas, and we're looking forward to what's next to come in brain health. Thank you, Kristen, for joining us.